is kind of sticking out a little bit, kind of near where the mouthpiece breaks from the reed in that curve where there's space. Um, but again, different mouthpieces have different curves and different lengths of the curve. Okay, so this one, the Lamberson, I believe is a shorter curve just because of the way it plays and responds. Um, so I don't have to take as much mouthpiece as I do with something with a longer curve. You know, a lot of my mouthpieces have a 50 length curve. Sometimes I'll play one that has a 52 or longer, um, and I'll have to take more. Some mouthpieces, I have to take more mouthpiece to get the most out of them. Those 7-tipped links, when I first got them, I was playing them and they were a little, I wasn't used to that small of a tip. They were a little closed sounding. I wasn't getting enough power out of them. I took a little bit more mouthpiece than I'm used to. It was a little uncomfortable. I'm like, a little different. But bam, it opened up the sound. It was like, well, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. You know, that moment where you're like, oh, okay. So now when I play that mouthpiece, I take a little bit more. That's where it is. That's the gold. You know, that's the where I can get to the 10 where it sounds like, oh, that's locked in. You know what I'm saying? Some mouthpieces I've had to come back on just a little bit to feel like I get what I want. Now, you would think you would never have to come back, but I've had to on some mouthpieces to get the most out of them. So I experiment with that. Some mouthpieces I feel like I have to be a bit looser down here to get them to open up. Some I have to be a little bit tighter to be more expressive, that kind of thing. So those are all kind of things I mess with. And I talked about air too. The air is huge. When you jump from a 100 tip to a 115 or 120 or 125 or whatever, it's not only the embouchure and everything, it's the air that has to change. It's got to be a whole different focus and stream of air. And I've heard of so many people that play guardalas and they're playing them and then they get a great link. They buy a great link that they know, you know, someone says this is a great link, this is awesome, and they get it and they hate it. And I believe the reason for that is because the air has to be totally different. So yeah, that's, you know, especially when you have to spend some time. Because actually when I got this one back, remember I said I had this and it was killer and I sold it and then I got it back. When I got this back and I was having such a hard time, that was in January. Well, it was around, I think it was in January, but it was around a time where I had just played all these high baffle tenor mouthpieces. And when you play a high baffle, there's a whole art to playing that too, and playing it well and getting dark with that, darker. But it takes less air. You could just blow and get a sound, you know. When you blow really loud, it's bam, it's like huge. With a link, if you just blow a little bit, it's just like, it's like airy and it's just not there. So that's what I mean by air. You have to get used to blowing more and getting more air going through the mouthpiece and horn. The other thing, and this is a weird thing. The other thing that I think about when I think of trying mouthpiece, especially link type mouthpieces, is at first they can be tubby, and I'm not sure what that is caused from. I've heard other people play a link and get the most gorgeous sound I've ever heard in my life, and then I'll say, can I try your link? You know, can I try it? I would love to try it. I wash it and stuff, and I'll try it. Tubby and no projection and just like, oh, what's going on? It could be, you know, the reed thing. Usually in those situations, I haven't had enough time to like just whip all these reeds out and play them. But I think it's also partly to do with voicing. Okay, having the right voicing in the throat and in the tongue with the tongue position to get the best sound out of those mouthpieces. And it doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't happen within 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even half an hour a lot of times. For me, again, it happens probably like 3 days of playing 2 to 3 hours a day, sometimes 4 hours. You know, practicing overtones, going up into the altissimo, getting used to all the, you know, technical things like working around the horn, doing larger jumps, and getting used to how your tongue has to change. See, for when you jump from a note, like when I jump from high D to G on my tenor, my tongue has to do a certain position change. When I'm changing any notes on the tenor, there's a slight position change or a great position change. And for every mouthpiece, it's slightly different. So you have to become accustomed and used to that, the differences and how everything flows and works. I think that's about it. I mean, the last thing to consider is intonation. And the only thing I'll say about that is when I try mouthpieces, I have a tuner. I put it on the, actually two last things. I'll put it on the horn, and then play a middle B and find where middle B is right on the 0 on my tuner. And then I'll warm up and play for a while without the tuner, and then I'll come back and just check the notes, making sure they're in acceptable bounds. 99% of mouthpieces I try or play are fine intonation-wise. Every once in a while I'll get a whacked one, which is like, what is going on? It's like notes are flat, notes are sharp for whatever reason, and I'm like, okay, this is whacked. If you love the tone of a mouthpiece but the intonation's whacked, I would say get rid of it. You know, I've heard some people say you can work with intonation, you can get used to it and know what to do on different notes. But for me, when I say whacked, I mean it's just out to lunch. Like different notes are sharp, flat, not what I'm used to, not what the sax should be. In that case, yeah, can I adjust to make it in tune? Probably, but is it worth the effort and sweat that it's going to take and work to make it play in tune? For me, no. I'd rather get rid of it, find another one with as good a tone or better that's in tune. The last thing I'll say is about the cork, trying mouthpieces. And I've heard lots of questions about the cork. What happens is the bore on a lot of mouthpieces can be really narrow. So, or it can be really big, and it varies from mouthpiece to mouthpiece. So a quick tip, if you put on a mouthpiece and it's really tight and it crushes your bore, or it crushes your cork, then what you do is you boil some water, and I take a cup of water, put it in the microwave, boil or cook it for 3 minutes, take it out, usually it's bubbling, boiling, and I just stick the neck into the cup until the water's like right here above the cork, hold it for 2 seconds probably, take it out, dry it with a towel, and then the cork's back to almost its original shape. So that's a great little trick and tip. It works better than Teflon tape or putting paper around it. And it gets the cork. But I've been doing that for probably over a year now with this cork, and I've probably tried 100 different mouthpieces on this neck, and it still works with the cork. It still expands it. If the mouthpiece is too big, the only thing you can do is wrap. I like to wrap paper around it. Some people do Teflon. I feel like Teflon is tight, and then it gets really tight on the mouthpiece, and then when I force it on, it almost feels like it makes the cork even smaller under the Teflon, like the pressure. And then Teflon's really slippery, and I don't know, I like something that grips a little bit more. So I'll just do paper for the short term, and then if I love a mouthpiece, I'll put a new cork on it, which is a different talk about how to put a cork on a neck. I think that's about it. So I hope this talk kind of helps you with trying out mouthpieces. The main thing is be patient. You know, and it's hard. I understand that. A lot of times you get a mouthpiece in the mail and you have to send it back to get your money back, and you're anxious and you're impatient. You know, a lot of times you spend a lot of money on a mouthpiece, so you get it with these high expectations that this mouthpiece is going to rock the world and be the end all of mouthpieces, and you play it and you don't like it, so you get like a sick, I know personally, you get a sick feeling in your stomach. You feel like, I just got ripped off. I just bought a piece of junk. I just spent whatever amount of money, $800 on this thing that's supposed to fix and be this amazing thing, and it's a piece of junk. And you either immediately go, I got to get my money back, and send it back to try to get your money back. A lot of times you can't. Or you go, I got to get my money back, put it on eBay. And you put it on eBay and you sell it. All I'm saying is, even with that anxiety and that feeling in your stomach, don't freak out, okay? This has happened to me a lot. When I was early on, I would freak out, but now I try a mouthpiece, and then instead of freaking out, I go, okay, let me go through the process here. And I've had mouthpieces on my desk. If it doesn't happen on day 1, I'll try it on day 2. If it doesn't happen on day 2, I'll try on day 3. Usually by day 3, if it's not happening, I'm frustrated. So I'll keep it on my desk, and then I'll try it maybe a week later. If it's not happened then, I'll try it maybe a week after that. And then if it doesn't happen after that, usually I'm like, I can't work with this. It's not happening. But a lot of us don't have that luxury, So, and I understand that. So, sometimes you go into a music store and you try mouthpieces, and you don't have all the time in the world. But I would say, if you can get something close to dialed in, even in the music store, if you can, spend a few hours in that booth or practice room playing that mouthpiece as much as you can before they say, hey, you got to make a decision. I mean, I've had people say that to me in music stores before. I've been there for like 4 or 5 hours trying mouthpieces. So I hope this talk makes sense, and I think that's about it for everything I've learned with mouthpieces and trying them and all that, as far as the physical act of trying them. So I wish you well. I hope you can try some mouthpieces, and this can kind of give you some tips and things to try when you're doing that. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you on my site. If you want to check out some video lessons, I have hundreds on there, over 400 now. I have a multitude of books on there, PDF books that you can get on jazz improvisation. And if you want to check out some mouthpiece clips, I have a lot of those. So, all right, I'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.